Please give it up for Turella Woods.
Okay, are you ready? Yeah. All right. When I was in my 30s, I was a mom, I was a wife, I had a good career, things were going pretty good. And we had this routine in our house that every morning we would get up and I'd help my daughter pick out she had to pick out what she was going to wear because she was 4 years old and she knew everything. And so she would put on her outfit and we'd have breakfast. I'd give her her Flintstone vitamins, but she would only take the vitamin that matched her outfit. That should have been a clue. So we get dressed and we get ready to go out the door. We go into one of the bedrooms in our home where my husband was bedridden, and we would say goodbye to him, and we'd get in the car. I'd drop her off at preschool, and I would go to my job in downtown Portland. That morning, it felt like the same kind of morning at the bank. But what happened in the next few hours changed my life and made a big difference in how routine things really got. I was working, and we were in a great big room like this, and I looked up at the front desk, and two of my friends were standing up there, and I thought, well, it's too early for lunch. Oh, I bet they came to tell me that my husband died. So I went out, and they said, you need to come out in the hall. So we went out in the hall, and they grabbed my hand, and they said, your dad has died. And I said, you're kidding. And I didn't believe them, and I said, tell me that again. And they said, your dad died. So I went home, got my daughter, started packing, and I thought I'll call my mom and tell her that we are on our way to Roseburg. This was a Tuesday morning. So I called her and I said, is it true? Did he really die? And she said, yeah, he was out in the garden and he was planting peas, which he loved, and had a heart attack and died. So we found somebody that could drive us down to Roseburg because it just felt like the longest drive in the world. And while I was waiting to be picked up, I went once again into the bedroom where my husband was. We had at that time nurses that were around the clock that actually lived in our home. So I went to him and I said, Dad has died and I need to go and be with my mom and my brother. And I said, can you wait till I get back? And he said, I will. And he told me that he loved me, and I told him I loved him, and off we went to Roseburg. That was a Tuesday. On Thursday, the family gathered together to plan Dad's service for Saturday, and we were at the funeral home, and when we started to leave, the guy from the funeral home ran out with one of those great big black plastic garbage bags with a knot tied in the top of it. And he said, here, these are the things that belong to your dad. And I was so mad because this loving, wonderful man had died, and they put his billfold and his shirt and his shoes in a black plastic bag with a knot on the top of it. And it felt so disrespectful for me. I was so angry about that. I still have a hard time picturing that man running out and grabbing the bag and giving it to me. So we went home. The next day, I get a phone call from Portland, from Providence, and it's my husband's doctor. And he said, Turella, I think that you better come back to Portland. And I said, well, my dad's funeral's tomorrow. And he goes, I don't think Bob's gonna make it through the day. So we got someone to take us to Portland because it took us forever, it seemed like, to try to arrange a private plane to fly us up there. We might as well just drive. So somebody drove us. And so Tiffany and I got to Providence Hospital, ran and found the elevator, and we got on the elevator up to the 5th floor. We got out of the elevator, and there were our friends that were standing over here, kind of in a group, and they came to me, and they said, "Bob has died." I was so upset, and I said, "I can't believe it." They said, "Well, he's in room so-and-so." So I went down there, and there was this man who at one time weighed 300 pounds. He was 6'6", and he was gone, and he died alone. I talked to the doctor, and I said, "I feel so awful that I didn't get back here in time." And he said, "Well, when you called from Eugene saying that you were on your way, the nurse went into the room, and she bent down, and she said, 'Turella and Tiffany are on their way, and they'll be here shortly.' She turned, she shut the door, he closed his eyes, and he died alone." I talked to the doctor, and he said, "I think that what happened was that he had known that for the last 3 years, you and Tiffany had gone through so much that I think he chose when he wanted to go, and he didn't want you to have to see anymore." So there was some comfort in there with that. So fast forward, I met a wonderful man, and we got married, and he adopted my daughter right away, and things were really good for us. I'd gotten a promotion at the bank, so it meant I'd be traveling a little bit, so I went to Seattle, round trip, same day, came back. On the way back on the plane, the pilot came over and said, "I'm sorry, but we're fogged out of Portland, so we're just going to circle for a while and see if we can't, just let the fog lift." It seemed like hours to me. I started really getting anxious. I couldn't hardly breathe. I was sick at my stomach. I thought, oh, great. First my dad, then my husband, and now me, and Tiffany's going to lose another parent. I was so sure this was the end. I thought, well, should I call the flight attendant and tell her that I just don't feel good? No, I don't want to draw any attention to myself. And besides, I was afraid that if I'd get up, I'd get sick. So I just sat in the seat. And I look around and I'm going, nobody else seems anxious about this but me. Don't they know what's going to happen? And so anyway, we finally did land. But before we did go back down and land at Portland, the pilot said, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's looking better. We're going to take a stab at it." I found no humor in that whatsoever. So we landed. My husband picked me up. Now let's fast forward a few weeks. All of a sudden, I couldn't get in the car. I couldn't drive. I couldn't take the bus. I could not go anywhere out of that house. I was frightened. And this continued week after week, and I thought, what is wrong with me? It sounds like maybe I need to go check myself into Providence or something because it didn't feel right. I remembered a woman that was a counselor when my first husband and I were going through the cancer thing. And so I called her up and I said, this is a situation. I said, I can't move. And she goes, well, you call this number and you talk to this psychologist and you get an appointment. And the last thing she said to me was, Turella, as long as I've known you, you have never given up until you found the answer. And I've carried that with me for many years. So I called her, made an appointment. At this point, I was having to make up excuses for meetings I needed to go to. Could you pick me up? And, the car's not running good, so maybe I could get a ride. And so I was making up stories. I thought if I had crutches, if I broke my leg, people would be, coming to me saying, can I give you a lift? This was all on the inside. So finally, after many sessions and many months of therapy, visualizations, meditation, it started to get better. And I can remember her saying to, because I couldn't do bridges. Bridges were like, oh, that wasn't even on the list. And she said to me, yeah, she said, how many times have you ever noticed that the Markham has fallen into the river? And there was something about that just triggered, like, she's so logical and that makes so much sense, So anyway, after a while it got better and I could take the car to the store, or I could take the car to a meeting. And bless his heart, my husband said, okay, this is the plan. Because you got to understand that he drove all day for a living, so he didn't have a clue what I was going through. He said, all right, you go to your meeting. If you get where you feel like you've got so much anxiety that you cannot move any further, you call me, I'll come get you, we'll have someone come and get the car. So that was our plan. We never had to put it into place, but that was the plan. So little by little, I thought, this is getting better, but I want to do a few more things that are a little risky for me because I want to get completely over whatever this thing is. By this time, they had diagnosed me with something called agoraphobia. And I thought, what the heck? So I went to the library and I looked up what it was, and I found that it's a fear of open spaces. It's the fear of not being in control. And I get it because that was exactly how I lived my life. So finally I said, okay, I'm going to take speech classes. I'm going to enter speech contests. I'm going to sit on nonprofit boards. You name it, I did it because I was determined not to be in that house feeling like a prisoner. So after a while, I got very comfortable. And then I could do airplanes. I could drive freeways. I went over the Markham Bridge. It didn't fall down. And things just really healed inside of me. And I just want you to know that I feel so much joy and such an honor to be able to share this with you, because if you ever know someone that you come across, or you yourself has ever had this kind of anxiety, it is so debilitating, and I get it. And perhaps someday when you meet someone that is going through this, you'll understand maybe a little bit better. One more thing, my daughter, I should have known, she's works for one of the largest beauty companies in the United States. And she didn't care what color vitamins are, so anyway. But I just wanted to say thank you for tonight. And when Paul, as he calls it, I voluntold that Turella was going to do this, I'm grateful. So I'm grateful for you guys for being here. So thank you very much.